From Draymond Green missing out in the first round of the 2012 draft, to LeBron James being the undisputed greatest draft pick ever, here are NBA's best draft picks of all time. First, let's talk about Dre. One of the all-time great defenders in NBA history, Green's made the all-defensive team a total of 8 times, winning the NBA on 4 separate occasions. Back in 2012, though, no one wanted anything to do with Draymond, to the point where he went unpicked in the first round. The Warriors struck gold early in the second round, drafting one of the pillars of their future dynasty. Fast forward a decade, Green averages 3 blocks plus steals in the playoffs. And I don't think I've seen a more consistent defender in the postseason ever. Talking about second-round steals, as good as Green is, Manu Ginobili is just one step further. Think about it. He was the 57th overall pick and ended his career with more than 14,000 points, 4,000 assists, 3,500 rebounds, and 1,500 steals. I can't say I'm surprised. European players are disrespected way too much in the NBA. No matter what they do in their own leagues, they never get drafted early. Unless there's something that sticks out, like Victor Wembanyama's skill set. Ginobili wasn't like Wemby. He offered nothing that you couldn't get from a dozen other players in his draft class. But boy, did he make those teams eat their words. He'd win 4 rings with the Spurs, and despite his deserving induction into the Hall of Fame, he doesn't get enough respect from the fans. That said, Manu's still not the best draft pick from the second round, cause that honor goes to another European, the Serbian giant, Nikola Jokic. The Nuggets got away with murder. When you think about it, Jokic is still on the right side of 30, hasn't even hit peak form, and already has 2 MVPs, a championship, and a Finals MVP to his name. He's the best player in the league, bar none, and remains the biggest steal of all time in NBA draft history. In case you didn't know, 40 players went before him, with the Nuggets finally taking a punt on the Serbian center. That decision would change the very fortunes of the franchise, as Jokic guided them to their first ever NBA title in 2023. The way he's playing, Denver could build a winning dynasty over the next half-decade or more. I mean, they do have a 2-time back-to-back MVP winner leading the line. But the Nuggets aren't the only team in the NBA to have such a player at their disposal. The Milwaukee Bucks picked Giannis Antetokounmpo as the 15th overall pick, and he'd win the MVP award in successive seasons. I'm sure the Bucks didn't see his growth spurt coming when they drafted him, but he was considered a steal at 15th overall even back then. So you can imagine the positive surprise among Milwaukee fans and management when Giannis became the most dominant player in the entire league. He had everything in his bag, but he was never supposed to be this good. Most scouts didn't take him seriously. Yep, because of the same European tax we talked about earlier. I've got to say he's taken his revenge. Making sure that the 14 teams that failed to pick him regret their decision, they certainly do. He's brought glory days back to Milwaukee, and the way he goes about his business, you can expect Giannis to be a talking point in the league for the next couple of seasons as well. There aren't many nicknames more fitting than Greek Freak, and he really is a freak of nature. Fun fact, did you know that the Cavaliers picked Anthony Bennett as their #1 pick that year? If you don't know who that is, don't sweat it. Not many do anyway. All that matters is that Giannis didn't end up in Cleveland. Instead, he has built a dynasty in Milwaukee as he chases a second ring with the same core. Talking about dynasties, the Golden State dynasty wouldn't have been possible without their bargain pick in 2009 when they drafted Steph Curry at 7th overall. The word pioneer is thrown around way too commonly these days. But when you use it to describe Steph, you're doing it right. Not many players can claim that they changed the game of basketball. Maybe only Michael Jordan, LeBron James, and the like can say that. But Steph's right up there, because he's the reason modern basketball is played the way it is. Before Steph caught fire for the Golden State Warriors, teams weren't too desperate to add shooters to their rosters. They were important, but weren't seen as a crucial part of a roster. Steph changed that. He showed the world there's more than one way to play basketball. And when done right, it can win you rings. For a pioneer like Steph, isn't it truly insane that he was the 7th pick in his draft class? Blake Griffin went at #1, while James Harden was picked at number 3. But no one from that class is good enough to even tie Steph's shoelaces. A moment of silence for Minnesota, though, because the Timberwolves passed up Steph twice, selecting Ricky Rubio and Johnny Flynn at point guard, ahead of Steph Curry. Crazy. At least he was one of the first 10 picks, right? The 1996 draft class had Kobe Bryant going at 13th, which is just as strange as Jokic going in the second round. 12 teams passed up on Kobe before the Charlotte Bobcats got their hands on Bryant. And you can even make it 13 because they gave him up for Vlade Divac before he'd even made his debut. The rest, as you know, is history. Bryant would go on to become one of the greatest players to play the sport, winning 5 rings, 2 Finals MVPs, and averaging 25 points over his career. He's the closest the NBA has come to replacing Michael Jordan, and Kobe had a similar impact on a whole generation, inspiring tens of thousands of players. If anyone can say he had the streets, it was Kobe for sure, R.I.P. King. But if we're including Kobe, then you've got to talk about the man who inspired him, Michael Jordan. Even MJ wasn't the first pick in his draft class, and that's a huge shock for people who don't follow the NBA religiously. For what it's worth, I don't blame the Houston Rockets for picking Hakeem Olajuwon at first overall. There was very little to separate the two legends before they arrived in the NBA, and it was always going to be a gamble. It didn't work out for the Rockets, even though they won 2 titles thanks to Hakeem. But a penny for Portland's thoughts? The Trailblazers had the 2nd overall pick, and they selected Sam Bowie, which is one of the worst drafting decisions in NBA history. Bowie was out of the league within a decade, while MJ was winning ring after ring in the 90s, adding 6 to his collection, and becoming the greatest player of all time. Air Mike also created one of the greatest dynasties in sporting history, and all because the Trailblazers opted for some rando like Sam Bowie instead of the greatest player of all time. What a cruel sport. The Blazers are still without a championship. But this isn't the best draft pick of all time. That honor goes to the one and only LeBron James. You might say that LeBron can't be the best draft pick of all time, as he went at number 1. Meaning, the Cavaliers had no choice but to go with him, given the amount of hype he generated. But LeBron's not the best draft pick for that reason. He's the best because of the pressure on his shoulders before coming into the NBA. Add in the fact that he didn't even play college ball and made the jump from high school to the NBA. Suddenly, it seems much crazier. He was on magazine covers before even getting picked by any team. And no one would have blamed him if he'd fizzled out and evaporated into thin air after making it to the NBA. The pressure on LeBron was unprecedented. I haven't seen a prospect as hyped as he was, not even Victor Wembanyama. And that tells you all you need to know about LBJ. 20 years after becoming the first pick of his draft class, Bron's still playing in the NBA. He's become a 4-time champion, been to the finals 10 times, and is the all-time leading scorer in the league's history. Basically, LeBron exceeded the loftiest expectations, and that's nuts to even think about. This was someone people expected to do great things, but he's done one better, throwing his name in the GOAT discussion, which is why LeBron has to be the best draft pick of all time, although the Cavs don't really deserve any credit for it. It was all LeBron. So there you have it, from LeBron going at number 1 in the 2003 draft to Draymond Green going unpicked in the first round of the 2012 draft. These were the NBA's best draft picks of all time.